Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and I'm here with Midway USA to tell you about the 3 red dot optics that I would have no issue trusting my life with. These optics are good enough for personal preparedness, whether or not that's home defense, self-defense, or even that emergency situation we all like to believe could never be possible. Now, they all sit at around $150, which makes them budget-friendly compared to their higher-end competitors. And you could go cheaper, but these are the cheapest that I would be comfortable betting my life on. All of them have one thing in common. They share the Aimpoint Micro footprint, which means they have the same mounting versatility as any Aimpoint Micro T1 or T2 red dot optic, which gives them a lot of options on the aftermarket. And they all operate in a very similar fashion, but there are some differences, and I will tell you which one of them is my choice and my favorite out of the 3 a little bit later on. So to get started, we're going to go with the Holosun 403R. Now, really I'm referring to the 403 series because in all honesty, the 403R is not the one I would choose. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. But just so you're aware, the 403R, the R stands for the rheostat dial that's right here, which is how you adjust your brightness. What are the specs on the Holosun 403R? Well, I can tell you, it weighs 3.5 ounces without a mount. There's a 2 MOA red dot reticle, 10 daylight settings and 2 night vision settings for brightness. And on one CR2032, it should get, well, depending on what part of Holosun's website you look at, either 100,000 hours of battery life or 50,000 hours of battery life. And just based on all the other red dot options out there on the market, I have to assume it's probably closer to 50,000 hours. And that's when you just leave it on one of the lower settings, and it does not have a motion activation feature. And generally those features are on other optics, including the other 2 that we're going to discuss here in just a minute. And that saves battery over time by shutting down when the optic is motionless and then turning back on as soon as it feels movement. So this optic does not have that, but based on its advertised battery life, apparently it doesn't need it either. Now, it comes in the box with a low profile Picatinny mount and a lower third co-witness mount as well. So that's good because if you want to mount it to a shotgun, you have the low mount, and if you want to mount it to an AR-15, you have the lower third co-witness mount. So you get some value out of that. Waterproof rating-wise, it actually has the IP67 rating, which is very good, which means it's going to do the job you need it to do when you're out in the elements, and it's actually one of the better ratings out of the 3 red dot sites we're discussing today. Now, what's wrong with the 403R? The 403R suffers from a very bad glare. Now, when you're looking through the ocular lens, and if there is any type of backlighting, say the sun is behind you, you will see a very bad glare through the optic. It'll be a red line, basically, that occludes the top third of the optic. And that's because the emitter on the 403R in particular is placed at around 6 o'clock inside of the optic housing. Now, my understanding is that the 403B doesn't suffer from that same glare because its emitter is at more of an angle. So if you're going to get one of the Holosun 403 series optics, I would definitely recommend getting the B instead of the R so you can avoid that glare. But other than the glare, everything else seems pretty much good to go. And I've had this optic for quite a while. It is currently mounted on my 1022 in a Desert Tech chassis, and it allows me to, get quick shots and just have fun with it. But because of that glare, it's relegated to my 22s or even my shotguns because I'm not using them for a self-defense type scenario. But if I wanted to use a Holosun for that particular thing, I would go with the 403B. Now, let's move on to the next optic. And that's going to be the SIG Romeo 5. And yes, these weapons are clear and safe, just so you're aware. The SIG Sauer Romeo 5 is one of the most popular red dot optics on the market right now. And for good reason. It's a really good, high value optic that's reliable, durable, and does a good job. There's really nothing much to complain about it. So what are the specs on the Romeo 5? Well, the specs on the Romeo 5 are that it weighs 3.5 ounces. Now, SIG only advertises the weight of the optic with the mount installed. So I took it off the mount and weighed it, and it was 3.5 ounces, exactly the same as the Holosun, which is kind of what you would expect, right? It has a 2 MOA red dot reticle, just like every other red dot we're discussing today. It has 8 daylight settings and 2 night vision settings. And then we have a CR2032 advertising about 40,000 hours of battery life. So a little less than the Holosun, And the SIG Romeo 5 actually has MOTAC, which is Sig Sauer's motion activated illumination, which, like I said before, means it shuts off after it's idle for a while, and then the second it feels movement, it turns back on. So you would think by having that technology, this red dot would last longer than the Holosun that doesn't have it, but for some reason it's advertised at 10,000 less battery life hours. So keep that in mind, but honestly, we're talking battery life in terms of years at this point, so that's really not an issue to me, at least in my opinion. Now, this optic also comes with a low Picatinny mount and a lower third co-witness mount as well, so you get a lot of value in the box with it. And we'll talk about that here in a minute, but we'll call it value for now. And then this waterproof rating on the Romeo 5 is IPX7. So just so you're aware, the difference between IPX7 and IPX7 is that IPX7 has no specific dust or like airborne particle protection, whereas the 6 in IPX7 states that it has dust and airborne particle protection. Then they both have the same amount of waterproofing. So in reality, IPX7 is better than IPX7, but I haven't had a single issue with this optic, and I haven't heard of many issues regarding dust getting inside. So I don't necessarily know if it's really something worth considering when it comes to which one you're going to get, but just so you're aware of that difference, there is the lower waterproof rating on the Romeo 5 is in comparison to the Holosun. So, like I said, great optic, no real complaints. Everybody's using Romeo 5s these days. They're a huge value, and of course, like I said, at that price point, very hard to beat. Now, let's talk about my favorite optic, which I'll explain why it's my favorite optic here very soon for you, okay? Oh. Sometimes you gotta do AK stuff with AKs. This is the Primary Arms SLX MD20, okay? Now, this is a lesser known optic maybe, or maybe less discussed when it comes to when people are recommending red dot optics, especially in that micro T1, T2 footprint. And I'm not sure why, because like I said, out of these three, it's actually my favorite. So, what are the stats or the specifications on the SLX MD20? Well, this optic weighs 3.8 ounces, whereas the other two weigh 3.5. Now, I'm not sure what the difference is per se, but what I can say is that Primary Arms is the only manufacturer here that advertises what the housing is actually made out of. And their housing's made from 6061 T6 aluminum. I don't know what the other two are made out of. It's possible they're the exact same material, but I know for a fact that's what this is made out of, and I also know it weighs 0.3 ounces more. So that could be why, I'm not sure, but just wanted to let you know about that. Now, of course, this has a 2 MOA red dot reticle, just like the other two optics, and this particular model has 8 daylight settings and 4 night vision settings. Now, I don't personally know that based on the information that's put out there by Primary Arms, because all they say is that it's night vision compatible and that it has 12 settings. But just based on my testing, you have about 8 daylight visible brightness settings, and then you have 4 settings you cannot see with the naked eye, which would make me assume those are the night vision settings. So that's how I divvied it up, I guess we'll say. This also takes a CR2032 battery, just like the other two. This one advertises 50,000 hours of battery life, so similar to the Holosun, 10,000 more than the SIG, and this has Primary Arms' Auto Live motion activation technology, which is basically the same thing as the MOTAC from the Sig Sauer Romeo 5. This one only comes with a low mount. You do not get a lower third co-witness mount with this optic. So for some people, because it costs the same as the other two basically, for some people that's gonna feel like a lesser value, right? Because you might not be able to mount it directly to your AR-15 the second that you buy it. So I understand if you are on a very tight budget that this optic might not provide you with everything you need right out of the box, so you might rather choose the Romeo 5 or the Holosun 403B. Don't get the R, the B. But we're going to talk about that here in just a second for why that might not necessarily matter as much as you think. And then this particular optic has the waterproof rating of IP67, which is better than the Romeo 5's waterproof rating of IPX7. So specifications wise, this is a very good optic. It has all the features, it has everything you want it to have, and it actually weighs just a tiny bit more, which might be better in the sense of long-term durability. Now, why do I choose this optic? Well, first off, One thing you have to understand is that the fact that it only comes with a low mount isn't necessarily a downside. Why do I say that? Well, all these optics are compatible with Aimpoint Micro T1 or T2 optics mounts. The mounts that come with these optics are not high quality. They're definitely cheap. You're going to want to replace them most likely. And for me personally, I generally want a taller mount than a lower third co-witness mount. So I'm gonna have to buy a new mount anyway. And then the quality and the materials used for some of the aftermarket mounts far beyond surpasses these mounts that are included with the optics and will likely last you much longer and be much more durable. So in general, I would recommend replacing the mounts on all of the optics, even though the other two come with them, right? And if that's what you're gonna have to do anyway, like for me, if I want a 1.93 inch mount, I can't use the lower third co-witness ones anyway. So I have to do that. I might as well get the optic that has the other features I prefer as well and not let the mount sway my decision, okay? But like I said, if you are on a very tight budget, getting one that comes with the mount so you can just put it on a rifle and get going with it might make more sense for you. So I totally understand that. Now, this optic has also been extremely durable on this Romanian Draco right here, which only has a 12-inch barrel shooting full power 7.62 by 39. Even without the suppressor on, this optic is getting beat up, dealing with all that recoil and all that concussion from this flashbang on a stick, basically, and hasn't had a single issue. And in fact, this optic in particular, I used in my extreme cold weather test when I was testing out different firearms platforms to see how they would operate. And this optic survived hours in -30 and -40 degree weather. The battery didn't shut off. The red dot never turned off. I mean, it lasted the entire testing time. So I was really impressed by it. And in all honesty, I had an Aimpoint Acro P2 that did die in that test. But this Primary Arms SLX MD20, it made it through no problem at all. So that gave me a lot of confidence in the optics. So durability-wise, reliability-wise, I mean, I don't throw my optics all over the ground. There's plenty of torture tests out there that you could find on YouTube where you'll see people destroying optics like this. These are all gonna be in the same realm of durability and reliability, at least in my opinion, based on their construction and everything else about them, right? And from what I've seen by doing my research. So I have no issues with any of the durability of these optics, but I can tell you that this one in particular has been just fine in the Samson RSR2 mount, which replaces your rear leaf spring and actually just provides a very solid, very low bore height optic mounting system on an AK, so I like it quite a bit. It's been on this gun exclusively, and it's been 100% good to go. So keep that in mind. And there's one more thing that I like this optic better for than the other two, and the other two can't provide you with this. And that's why it's actually a really good choice if you're gonna go with this. It has its objective lens on the same ocular plane as an Aimpoint T1 or T2 Micro. And so I'll flash an image on the screen right now so you can see what I mean. Basically, there's a lot more material on the bottom of the Sig Sauer Romeo 5 and the Holosun 403R that you don't have to deal with on the SLX MD20 from Primary Arms. And the reason that that matters is because you're actually going to get the correct mounting height when you go to start buying aftermarket mounts. That extra material on the other optics will actually raise that mounting height just ever so slightly, which can cause issues. And how do I know that? Well, because this mount has a co-witness rear notch that allows you to see and use your iron sights through the red dot optic as a backup in case, your battery dies or something happens. These two optics will not allow me to see that rear sight notch because they sit just a little too tall. But a true Aimpoint T1 or T2 would let me see it no problem. And the SLX MD20 also lets me see that rear sight notch without any occlusion. So when it comes to wanting the true mounting height, this optic provides that, whereas the others do not. And that's why I choose the Primary Arms. Personal experience, witnessing the level of durability and reliability it has, and because it has that true mounting height of the Aimpoint T1, T2, gives me a lot of confidence that this is the right choice for me. But I wouldn't have an issue using any of the aforementioned optics either. in almost every other role, they're going to be perfectly suitable for what it is we might need, other than if you're worried about having that exact mounting height. And in all honesty, like I said, avoid the 403R, get the 403B, and with the MD20, it seems it might be getting replaced here with the MD21, which is the newest model from Primary Arms. You can still find the MD20s, but it does seem the MD21 is coming in and the MD20 is on its way out. I'll look forward to testing out an MD21 here in the future because I have a feeling if it's anything like this but has some additional enhancements, it's probably going to be a really high value red dot sight. So keep an eye out for that. And let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What other red dot optics would you trust your life with in the budget category? And like I said, I know you can go cheaper, but when it comes to defending your life and protecting your family, well, there should be a level of standards that we hold, and to me, these all meet that standard at a very competitive price point compared to something like an Aimpoint T1 or T2. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for having me here. As always, I appreciate Midway USA for hosting me over here on their channel. And, well, in case you're new to what I do, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.